There's an argument to be made that boring watches are the best watches. If you were to have just one watch, it would have to be generally a boring watch. So in this video, I want to explore this topic, the idea of a boring watch and what makes for a good boring watch. I'll share with you my three favorite watches in this category and also some affordable alternatives at the end. So stick around. Boring in this context means versatile. And I feel like in every collection, there's a need for this kind of watch, something that is a safe bet, something that can just go with everything. That's where I find it so liberating in a way. It's kind of like a white or a black t-shirt, just goes with, you don't have to think about it. On the table here, I have three watches that are boring at first glance, but there are certain things I love about these. First, we have the Tudor Black Bay Heritage Edition. This is the previous generation of the Tudor Black Bay, and I like this previous generation much more than the current generation, the new generation. I'm not a huge fan of that because I feel like it's just a little bit more luxurious. It goes away from the tool watch nature that this generation of the Black Bay had, and it just makes it a little bit more dressy. Again, both of these, if you look at them, they are in that boring camp, but for me, I like the sporty everyday style watch, not the elegant everyday style. This is the 41mm edition. There is a 36mm version that I prefer. There's just something so inherently cool and unpretentious about this previous generation of the Heritage Black Bay. They weren't just a good gateway into the Black Bay line, they were the perfect one watch you could have in that under $2,000 price range. A reliable ETA caliber on the inside, which won't run you into premium service costs, 150 meters of water stints with a screw-down crown, and just a no-nonsense, good-looking design that's both rugged and can be dressed up. Even until now, it's very hard to find these in the pre-owned market, especially the 36mm version. Even if one comes up, they just sell out instantly. Even after almost 10 years, these are still so popular. The brilliance of this watch was that it helped popularize the idea of the everyday watch, especially at the more attainable end, which by definition meant that it was extremely versatile. It featured all of the design codes that made the Black Bay Diver so popular, but this time in a non-dive Explorer style format. Then comes the Explorer 1, the reference 124170, the ultimate obvious choice for any collector, for anyone to show that they are into watches or they have a bit of money to spend on watches. This isn't just boring because it's one of the best watches you could have, but also one of the best, most obvious luxury brands you could have. It's just boring on all levels. But overall, the Explorer 1 is the epitome of the boring watch. It is the exit watch, if there was one. The watch that you would get when you decided that no more watches. You just want this one and done watch. You don't want to get in this rabbit hole of collecting 10, 20 watches. It's not just an adventurer's watch, it's a classification of a watch style that has become even more important as a category than the integrated bracelet sports watch. It's the definitive everyday style sports watch. But where the Black Bay leaves something to be desired, the Explorer 1 just ends it. Ever since I got into watches, this has been the watch that every other everyday style sports watch has been measured against. It's always been Explorer versus this, Explorer versus that. But I like it because it's less obvious than other sports models like the Daytonas or the Submariners, which makes them more obvious as the Rolex to go for, as a status symbol. Explorer 1 is, again, a little less luxury, more functional. Don't want to use the word tool watch for a Rolex, but historically, it has been the premium tool watch. The third watch on this list is my personal watch, and it is the most boring watch in my collection, but also one of my favorite ones. It is the Grand Seiko SPGX 261. Like the Explorer 1 and the Tudor Black Bay Heritage model, this features the design DNA of Grand Seiko in its most bare-bone and functional form, making it one of the most versatile Grand Seikos you can find. I've worn this on the leather strap, I've worn this on sailcloth strap, but my favorite configuration is surprisingly on a NATO strap. On a gray NATO strap, this black dial just looks so incredible. It instantly goes from an elegant everyday style watch to a rugged looking sports watch. What makes this elegant, of course, is that mirror finishing on the case, but also the brilliant shine on the applied markers and hands. But the specs on this watch, like 100 meters of water stints and that extremely accurate 9F quartz movement, makes it one of the most accurate watches in my collection, making it just a grab and go watch. Something that's pure utility, pure function. And I think that makes this boring, but not too boring at the same time. It still has a lot of character. That's exactly what makes this the perfect boring watch. To me, a good boring watch isn't something that has no character, that is completely lacking any kind of soul. That's boring to look at and boring to wear. It's more about finding the perfect watch that does it all, does everything so well that it makes it an obvious choice. It makes it the ultimate watch, the definitive watch. Hence, boring. Now, here are some of my picks for the best boring watches, the best everyday perfect watches for everyday wear that's not going to cost you a lot of money. First is the C63 Sealander Automatic in 36 by Christopher Ward. This has a lot of Rolex Explorer 1 characteristics, but without being a direct homage. It's not reminding you of an Explorer 1 or a Tudor Black Bay. It's very much its own thing, and I love that originality. But if you want something a bit more known, that's a household name, but without having to spend a lot of money, I would go with this, the Tissot Heritage 1938. This comes in a 39mm case and is one of the most affordable COSC certified movements you could find on a watch. It's not a compromise. It doesn't feel like a compromise. There is a lot of design characteristics that's going on with those pencil style hands and the vintage font. And speaking of boring but not too boring, I feel like this strikes that perfect balance. Next, we have another household brand, Hamilton. And this is the Khaki Field Automatic in 38. Now, you could go with the Khaki Field Mechanical, which I personally owned, and I loved that watch, but after a while, it felt a little bit too boring, and that's why I swapped it out for the Alpinist, the Baby Alpinist from Seiko. If you are to just have one watch, I would say this is the perfect watch for around $600-700. This kind of does everything you would want in a one watch collection. And if you can push your budget a little bit more, this new Longines Conquest in 38 is just a perfect watch. I would say one of the best movement finishing, one of the best movements you could find in this price point. And after getting hands-on with this, I was surprised how good the bracelet feels. It feels like it belongs on a much more expensive watch, if you know what I mean. Let me know in the comments which other perfect boring watch would you recommend to anyone that's looking to get into watches or just looking for that perfect one and done watch. Let me know. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.